Welcome back to the Hannahcast YouTube channel, and today it is time for below the line Oscar predictions for December. This is my last Oscar predictions video until I do my final Oscar predictions, because we got the Golden Globe nominations, we got the Critics' Choice nominations, we got a few of the guilds, not all of them, but we got a couple of the guilds, and we also have the shortlists to go off of. I'm also going to let you guys know that I'm going to be doing a New Year's Eve live stream. Be on the lookout for that. That's going to be a lot of fun. So, without any further ado, let's just get started. Casting is interesting, because again, this is shortlisted, so we know what's in contention here. There are a few surprises, like for example, The Long Walk is not here. I'm trying to think. It Was Just an Accident is not here either. So I think a few of these you could probably say are looking pretty likely. There are, One Battle After Another, Sinners. I think those are the top two. And I think Hamlet's going to get in there because it's not a big cast, because this is not the same thing as ensemble. This is not the same thing as, like an ensemble category. But the casting of the film, maybe, especially with the casting of Jacoby Jupe, because one thing that the casting directors love is when you're casting kids. Because, for example, what was it? For best casting, like at the Artios Awards, which is voted on by the Casting Society of America, what was it? Are You There, God, It's Me, Margaret won best casting in a big budget comedy over films like Air and I'm trying to think of what else. I'm not exactly sure, but it leapfrogged over some pretty big films. And then, there was the previous year where Matilda the Musical won Best Casting in a Big Budget Comedy over films like Glass Onion and The Menu and Wonka, which again were much bigger, more high-profile films. They like it when you cast a bunch of kids. And so that's why I'm kind of looking at Hamnet, even though it's mainly one kid from what I assume. So the casting of Jacoby Jupe might be very strong. Then there's Frankenstein, which also does kind of fit in with, what the, Artios Awards kind of do. They also like it when you cast characters that are like very well known. Like, for example, Wicked won Best Casting in a Big Budget Comedy because, the casting of the characters that we all kind of grew up loving. It's like, wow, this is actually very strong casting. And the same thing can be said for West Side Story. That really worked out for them. So I am kind of looking out for Frankenstein to see if that can win. And then there's The Secret Agent, which I am very curious about because the casting of Wagner Moura might pull this film through. I mean, the fact that it's in here really does give me pause. I'm like, But then again, there is also Weapons, which also, that is a film that has a big, kid ensemble cast. I mean, obviously they're not in the whole film, but they still cast a bunch of kids and they do play a big part in the film. So it's like, that could get in. Now, granted, I don't know. From what I've seen of the Casting Society of America Awards or the Artios Awards, they don't typically go for horror that much. I mean, to my knowledge, even It didn't get nominated. That year, It didn't get nominated. So I don't really know how to feel about Weapons getting in. So I'm not sure. Surratt is another one I'm really looking at because another thing that I've noticed is that, international films don't typically get nominated here, but Surratt did make the shortlist. And I would personally say that, the casting in Surratt, from what I've seen, is very unique. Like, casting, real ravers and casting people with, actual, physical disabilities. Again, I'm kind of looking at that and I'm going, So that could happen, but but then again, how strong is Surat really? That's the thing. How strong is Surat? So, yeah. Then there's sentimental value. I think a lot of people would think this is maybe happening, but I don't know. This doesn't quite check the box for me for the Artios Awards. Marty Supreme, I don't know. I mean, maybe, but also maybe not. And Wicked for Good, I really don't think that's happening. Aside from the fact that, the film is just not as liked as the first film. Really, the only major casting choice that they made for this film was the Cowardly Lion. And from what I understand, he only has 2 lines in the film, which is very strange. And I know people are saying, well, they didn't get to do it last time, so they're gonna, they're gonna nominate it here. It's like, that's not really how craft branches do things. And yes, I do consider casting to be a craft branch. I don't think it's going to be considered an above the line category. Like, this is a thing that this is a craft that that professionals do and stuff. So and usually the craft branches don't really go for narratives like that. Like, well, we didn't get to do it last time. So I feel like that's something you would more likely see in the acting categories, or even sometimes director. But the craft branches, I don't really see that. They don't really do that. So I'm going to say no. That Wicked's not going to get nominated for casting, because again, most of the casting was already done in the first film, and I just don't think, the film, one, does enough big casting to justify a nomination, and two, even at that, the movie's not really that well liked, or at least not liked enough to get nominated for something like this, to to blow past that. And yeah, Wicked for Good did do very well in the shortlists, but let's be fair here, it did well in shortlists where it was kind of expected to. Of course it was going to get visual effects. Of course it was going to get 2 song shortlist mentions. Of course it was going to get into score in a list of 20 scores. When you really break it down, and also makeup, of course it was going to get makeup. When you really break it down, it's not really surprising that it got shortlisted for as many categories as it did, because they're not really categories that are honoring the film itself. Now, if it didn't make the shortlists, that would make it look even worse. Like Jay Kelly or The Testament of Ann Lee, which, again, Jay Kelly didn't make casting. That's why I think that's a really bad sign for the film. But it's the fact that Wicked for Good made a bunch of shortlists, that's not really much of a concern to me. It's yeah, again, of course it would do well in these kind of categories. Anyways, international feature. Again, this is interesting. At this point, how is it not the top 5? It was just an accident. I think that could win, but honestly, you could make an art if Accident, Sentimental Value, Secret Agent, and No Other Choice get in, you could make a solid argument for any of them winning Best International Feature. You could make a solid argument for any of them. And I do think they're all going to make... I do think that the top 4 is going to make Best Picture. I do. And I know people are saying, well, I don't know about No Other Choice. Guys, No Other Choice is fine. No Other Choice is doing just fine. Yeah, it didn't make the shortlists, but that's whatever. Sort of like how, I agree with Adriano. He said, Honora made 0 shortlists last year, and it still got into Best Picture. So it's whatever. It's fine. It still got adapted screenplay at Critics' Choice. It still got Best Picture Musical or Comedy and Best Actor Musical or Comedy at the Golden Globes. And keep in mind, that Best Picture Musical or Comedy, it got in over Wicked for Good, Jay Kelly, and The Testament of Ann Lee. That's big. So it's fine. I think No Other Choice is fine. I think as long as it makes the BAFTA Best Film 10, and same thing with Secret Agent, as long as those films make the BAFTA Best Film 10, it's going to be fine. It's whatever. But still, yeah. And then with Surat, Surat, the fact that it made that many shortlists, and it was completely unexpected, because it made casting, it made cinematography, it made score, it made song. I mean, obviously it made international film, so it's easy, but it's like, that's a lot of shortlists. And at that point, how is it not nominated for international feature? And I know people are going to be saying, well, I don't know if 5 neon films can get into international feature. Someone's got to get booted. Why? Why can't 5 neon films just get in if they're that strong? Why not? Because I really, like, I mean, sure, could they do left-handed girl? Maybe. Voice of Hinderjob? Maybe. Billeen? Maybe. But really, it's like, I'm not really concerned. Hell, I think all the, like, if I'm not mistaken, it's like, both Left-Handed Girl, not just both, but like Left-Handed Girl, Left-Handed Girl and Billeen got in at Critics' Choice, and Hinderjob got in at the Golden Globes, but they didn't like overlap with one another. So it's like the only reason why Sentimental Value wasn't nominated for the Critics' Choice Award was because of that random new rule that says that if an international film is in Best Picture, it's ineligible for international feature, which again, from what I understand, people were not told about that when they were voting. So, So it's like, it's like the top 5 is just there. I don't see a reason to doubt them right now. So yeah, I think this top 5 is easily happening. Obviously, you could look out for Sound of Falling, Homebound, The President's Cake, Kokuho, because it did make the makeup shortlist, so it's somewhat visible. Palestine 36, All That's Left DVU, The Late Shift. Yeah, but again, I think you just got to default to the top 5. The top 5, I think, is just easily what's happening. So yeah. Then we get to documentary feature, which admittedly, like, okay, this is the first time I'm like really predicting this category, and I have no idea what to do. I could be completely off base here because yes, The Perfect Neighbor is doing very well, but again, you do not want to be a front runner in this category. You do not want to be a front runner. That is bad. Because the documentary branch, I was even watching some old Siskel and Ebert Oscar analysis videos from like a few weeks ago. And even back then, apparently the documentary branch was snubbing the frontrunners all the time. And it's like, damn, man, what? So yeah, Perfect Neighbor, I'm like, it's looking good right now, but I don't know. There is still that kind of worry that it might slip because again, frontrunner. But one film I'm definitely looking out for. My Neighborhood Friends. Wait, hold on a second. Okay, My Undesirable Friends, Part 1, The Last Air in Moscow. This has been doing pretty well with the regional critics. I'm looking at this, I'm like going, Then there's the Alabama Solution. I'm trying to see like what films could be like the most like politically relevant. I'm kind of going with those. Apocalypse in the Tropics. That one is especially one I'm looking out for. Also, it's Brazil, and Brazil's kind of having a good time right now with the Oscars. Like, The Secret Agent is doing very well. You know, I'm Still Here won Best International Feature and got nominated for Best Picture and Best Actress last year. So I'm kind of thinking, like, maybe this could happen. I will say I'm looking out to see if like 2,000 Meters to Andrivka could be snubbed, because that could happen, because, you know, this is sort of like a sequel to 28 Days in Mariupol, and also this did not make the shortlist for international feature. I'm kind of curious about this. But admittedly, I'm not really, because I'm not as knowledgeable about the documentaries as some of the other categories. So I don't know what's next. Mr. Nobody Against Putin, that sounds like something that probably would be very, like, populist appealing, but maybe the documentary branch could snub that. Cutting Through Rocks, maybe. And then there's some others, like Cover Up. I don't know about Cover Up, because at least from the looks of it, it looks like it's more of like an archival kind of documentary thing going on. And the Academy doesn't really like those. Come See Me in the Good Light, Seeds, I don't know. So again, I'm just not very knowledgeable about this category. So I'm kind of winging it, doing my best. I looked up the synopses of these films and it's just like, it's kind of hard. So I don't know how accurate I'm going to be on this category. Then we get to animated feature. And this is interesting, to be honest. Because we have Arco, we have Little Amelie, or the character of Rain, or is K-pop... Because admittedly, I'm kind of like wondering if K-pop Demon Hunters can actually win. Because the past 2 years, I mean, you know, like the international films have been kind of cleaning up this category, like with Boy and the Heron, and then there was Flow. But at the same time, you know, like Adriano did make a good point when he said that there's not like between Amelie and, you know, Arco, there's not really a consensus as to which film is stronger than K-pop Demon Hunters, so they're not winning as much. And I remember last year with Flow, you know, even last year with Flow, like that was winning the initial critics groups. There was a little point for a while where where Flow was winning more awards than The Wild Robot. And it's kind of like, huh. You know what? Screw it. Fine. I will put K-pop Demon Hunters at number 1. Because when looking at the regional critics groups, there's not there's not a consensus as to which international film could potentially beat K-pop Demon Hunters. Like K-pop, because again, even last year with, you know, even last year with Flow versus Wild Robot, Flow was winning a lot of critics groups, even initially. Again, initially it was winning kind of more than the Wild Robot. Again, later on, Wild Robot caught up and won way more awards down the line. But initially, Flow had like a big bump right before the Golden Globes and stuff. But right now, K-pop Demon Hunters has just kind of steadily been number 1. So, fine. But if K-pop Demon Hunters loses the Golden Globe, I'm going to protect whatever wins for the Oscar. Because, and so, yeah. I'll do K-pop Demon Hunters at number 1. Fine, I'll do it. And again, to be clear, this is not me hating on K-pop Demon Hunters. I would actually like it to win Best Animated Feature. I've just been wondering if it's too good to be true. And again, the past couple years have been very wild when it comes to Best Animated Feature, so we'll have to see. But then there's the other nominees, Zootopia 2, Elio. I think I've actually seen all of the top 5 except Arco. And I gotta say, Elio was way better than I thought it would be. Like, from the trailers, the movie looked like absolute garbage. But, like, it's actually very charming, very funny, very creative visually. It's like... Now, granted, I do also think, you know, I do agree with the criticisms that, the boy's aunt really should have been his mother. I feel like that, like, I don't know why they made that change. But really, other than that, it's like, probably the best Disney animated film I've seen since Turning Red. And I know it's not saying a lot, but it's I'm struggling, man. Like, Disney just has not been... Hell, I even saw Zootopia 2, and even that film I didn't really think was that remarkable. I thought it was okay. But not, like, Best Animated Feature of the Year nomination worthy. But I don't know, Disney just has kind of, like, been in a slump, but I have to say, Elio genuinely did surprise me. And I haven't seen In Your Dreams, but at this point, it's kind of like, you know... I think it might just be the top 5. It just might be the top 5. It's been pretty consistent all the way around. In Your Dreams did get the Critics' Choice nomination, but at the same time, I mean, good God, even the Golden Globes didn't want to go for In Your Dreams. Instead, they went for Demon Slayer, a film that I'm very convinced is not getting the Oscar nomination. I mean... It's like was it like that'd be like one, like, isn't it like based on like a TV show? And it's just kind of like, not even just based on, I think it's like a continuation of the TV show in some way. And it's like, I don't think the Oscar voters are going to vote for a movie that they probably haven't even watched the show over. So it's like, yeah. And so at that point, it's just kind of over. Like, after In Your Dreams, it's just kind of like Magnificent Life, Dog of God, Bad Guys 2, Scarlet, The Twits. It's like, none of this is really happening. I genuinely think this year animated feature is going to be really easy to call because it's just not been a great year for animation. And so I think LEO is just going to round out that top 5. I think that's just going to happen. Cinematography. Now, granted, we have not had ASC yet. They could throw a wrench. But here's what, but we do have a short list here. Right now, Sinners is doing very well. And I'm happy to see doing very well in cinematography. Cinematography, I should say. I mean, this is absolutely deserved. I'm happy to see that they're going for this. It like, at this point, it's like, it's just going to take cinematography. It would have to be something wild for something else to take cinematography over Sinners. I do have One Battle After Another at number 2 because, again, if this film, like, considering this film is at least very likely to win Best Picture right now, you know, I do think this is like there is room for them to just give it the award just because. Again, I never doubt that. Then there's Frankenstein. I think it's pretty well in there for cinematography. I mean, I will say I'm kind of wondering what could be like the Conclave-esque snub. But whatever. Hamnet, maybe. And then there's Train Dreams. I don't know why I'm a little bit hesitant on Train Dreams. Maybe because it is like one of the weaker films in Best Picture, but I think it's like the cinematography is very solid enough. But you still do have Marty Supreme, which could happen. I am looking out for Nouvelle Vague. Again, if Nouvelle Vague gets in at ASC, I'm predicting it. I don't care. Because, like, if ASC goes for some rando international film, they're going to nominate it for cinematography. Granted, this is not Ed Lockman, but they did nominate Cold War for cinematography. Hell, I think they even gave it the win. And there was also Ida, which was nominated at ASC. I think it was nominated at ASC. I'm trying to remember. And it is in black and white, so I am looking up for Nouvelle Vague. Ballad of a Small Player. That's another one I'm also very much like looking into at ASC. Even though it's not necessarily international, but I've heard that the cinematography is very vibrant in the film, and if it makes ASC, I'm going to predict, if there's like if there's like a random film that we're just like, what? That gets into ASC, you're probably going to want to predict it, because ASC is also one of those rare guilds that if you wanted to go 5 out of 5, you could, and there'd be a chance you would get it all correct. So, yeah. F1, I don't, again, if Top Gun Maverick couldn't make cinematography, and that was very strongly in Best Picture, I really don't think F1's gonna do it. Begonia, maybe, but it's also not as, like, crazy cinematography as, like, something like The Favorite or Poor Things. At least, so, I don't know. Surratt. I don't know if the cinematography is what would stand out in that film. I don't know. I mean, I don't know. Wicked for Good, probably not. Sound of Falling, again, not impossible. If ASC does it, all bets are off. Sentimental Value. The cinematography didn't really stand out too much in Sentimental Value, to be honest. So I don't know. Song Sung Blue. Probably not, but I don't know. It is also like a big stage with, spotlights, sort of like Elvis and stuff. But I don't think it's going to end up being as showy as something like Elvis, so I don't know. Die My Love? Probably not. Film editing. This is interesting. One Battle After Another is winning. It's an action film that's winning Best Picture. Like, why would it not win editing at that point? So, but I will say, if Sinners does manage to pull it off in a Best Picture win, because I still think there is a chance that could happen. Again, I'm still going with One Battle After Another, but Sinners is proving that it can win stuff. It can win stuff. So I am looking out for that. But So, and if Sinners were to win Best Picture, I probably would predict it to win Best Film Editing. So I will say that. Marty Supreme, I think, will definitely get into film editing. Because it is it is a sports movie, and from at least from what I understand, there's probably going to be like some ping pong scenes that are very quickly edited. And one thing you gotta know about the Eddie Awards, they love sports movies that are at least Best Picture adjacent, because for the comedy editing category, you know, the drama editing category, King Richard won over Dune. And then a few years before that, you had I, Tonya, which won the comedy editing category. Again, sports movie that's sort of Best Picture adjacent, and Marty Supreme is exactly that. So that it would probably win the comedy editing category. So if it's gonna win that, then it's probably gonna easily be nominated for editing here. Sentimental value. There are some like montage sequences throughout that kind of go through time. Maybe. And Hamnet, maybe it gets an editing nomination. I mean, I'm assuming it's not very showy editing, but because it is like a strong Best Picture contender, it maybe could. But again, I'm not exactly sure. Then you got No Other Choice. If it did get the Eddie nomination for comedy editing, if it got the comedy edit, because we're not gonna actually wait. No, I forgot. We're not gonna have the Eddies. We're not gonna have the Eddie nominations. I just remember we're not gonna have the Eddie nominations until after the Oscar nominations, which is gonna make this category so difficult to predict. I think if No Other Choice does very well on BAFTA long lists, gets into Best Film, Best Director, Best Adapted Screenplay. Okay, well it's going to get nominated for Adapted Screenplay. Who are we kidding? But if No Other Choice does very, very well on the BAFTA long lists, then I will probably consider it for. I think because. It would also depend on how strong it is for Best Picture. If it shows up very strongly in the shortlists, then I think it could probably also show up in editing. So at least in the Oscars, because if it does very well in the shortlists at the BAFTAs, and that means it's probably going to get a few chunks of nominations. And if it does that, then it's probably going to get nominated for the Oscar in a few categories, including Best Picture and potentially film editing. And I could see this getting nominated for film editing and a comedy, but again, we just don't have we don't have the Eddies until after the Oscar nominations, so that makes this really hard. But also, this did get shortlisted at the Critics' Choice Awards. It didn't get nominated, but the fact that it was shortlisted, again, it's in the conversation. I'm really looking out for this. Frankenstein. I think this is a film that could, that's probably going to do very well in text overall. Actually, to my knowledge, I don't know if Frankenstein even got nominated for editing at the Critics' Choice Awards. Because they did one battle. They did Sinners. They did Marty Supreme. They did. Actually, let me look. Okay, best editing at Critics' Choice. F1, House of Dynamite, Marty Supreme, One Battle After Another, The Perfect Neighbor, and Sinners. Okay, so they did not do Frankenstein. So, I don't. If even they didn't do Frankenstein, maybe Frankenstein just doesn't get editing here. But yeah, it was just an accident. I know a lot of people are really pointing out, hey, maybe this could get editing. I don't know. Having seen Accident, it's not the most edited movie out there. It's like, and I'm not saying oh, it doesn't have a lot of cuts, but what I'm saying is the movie genuinely has a lot of long takes, and I don't think the editing is what really stands out about the film. I think what does stand out about the film are its director, it's directing, it's screenplay, it's acting, it's cinematography. I could see the argument for, but because so much of these shots linger on for so long, and there's just not a lot. I mean, obviously there are cuts, but it's not even the most artistic editing in there. It's just kind of it's, I don't want to say it's standard, because but it's also just like, I don't know if it's I don't know if it's going to get a nomination for editing. I think that's my thing. But yeah, Begonia. Again, I do have it in because it's in Best Picture. I'm not going to consider a movie for editing if it's not in Best Picture, or Best Picture adjacent. Train Dreams, perhaps. I don't know. Oh, I just realized I don't have the Secret Agent in here. Oh man. Imagine that's in number 10 or something like that. I don't know. Perfect Neighbor. I mean, it did get the Critics' Choice Award, but I don't know how strong that's going to be for the Oscar. I don't know. F1. I think a lot of people are going to be predicting F1, but I genuinely just do not think it happens. It's just not getting into Best Picture. I don't think it's going to get close to Best Picture. It's just not going to happen. House of Dynamite. I wouldn't mind if this got an editing nomination, but again, it's just not very much in Best Picture. And then Wicked for Good. Yes, the first Wicked not only got nominated for editing, but it was also, it was also, like, it also won the Eddie Award for comedy, which is good, but again, this film is just not as liked as the first Wicked. I think it's going to fall off of so many categories. So yeah. Then we get to production design, which I'm very interested over. Frankenstein, it's winning. Not really much of a contest. Sinners, I think it's definitely going to get nominated. Hamnet, yeah. Sentimental Value is one I think actually might happen, because it's kind of like The Father in a way, where, like, it's kind of like it's mainly like one location you see change, but you see it change drastically throughout the decades and throughout the, the years and stuff. And you see it change, and I feel like that might be enough. I feel like so the house kind of becomes almost a character in the film itself. So I'm kind of looking out for that. The one that I feel like could end up being vulnerable is Wicked for Good. Because from what I was told, and I'll probably be able to see this tomorrow, like, Wicked for Good, from what I understand, has a couple of new locations, but they do mostly stay in the same places that we saw in the first film. So, I don't know. This could, like, if there were like a Gladiator 2 where everyone thought it was going to get in, but then it didn't, this could potentially be one of those. Then you got Marty Supreme. Maybe that could happen. Begonia, from what I understand, the house was completely built, so maybe, but I don't know if it's strong enough to be a production design nominee. One Battle After Another. If they just want to go for this film because it's just that powerful and that strong, again, they could do it. Train Dreams, that's another one I'm kind of looking at. The production design is rather simple, but it is very recognizable and very effective, so maybe that could happen. Fantastic Four: First Steps, it did get the Critics' Choice nomination. It's probably going to get the Art Directors Guild nomination. That's going to be great, but again, no one seems to care about this movie. It didn't make the visual effects shortlist. It didn't make the score shortlist in the list of 20. Like, Captain America: Brave New World got score over Fantastic Four. What? And even at the Costume Designers Guild Awards, they didn't even nominate Fantastic Four for sci-fi fantasy costumes. Like, what in the world? So it seems like the industry is just not having it for Fantastic Four. They do not, like, they hate this movie for some reason. As much as it deserves production design, it's just not gonna happen. No Other Choice, that would be interesting. That could be interesting, but I don't know if the film is that strong necessarily. Avatar: Fire and Ash, from what I understand, they're not going to that many incredibly new locations. Again, with the first Avatar, the second Avatar, they were going into like the water world, and so that was kind of new. Here, I don't know. And even then, the second Avatar kind of struggled a little bit, because not only did it not get nominated for the BAFTA for Best Fantasy Production Design. No, it didn't get nominated for the BAFTA for production design. I don't know. Like Guillermo del Toro's Pinocchio and the Batman got nominated over it at the BAFTAs. But also, another thing to point out is that at the Art Directors Guild Awards that year, Avatar did not win Best Production Design for a fantasy film. It didn't win. It lost to Everything Everywhere All at Once, which wasn't even nominated for the Oscar. So it's like, if the second film couldn't even win there, so I think Avatar Fire and Ash is kind of done. The Secret Agent, maybe. Mickey 17, that'll be a nice production design nomination. I don't think they're going to do it, but yeah. Kiss of the Spider-Woman, The Testament of Ann Lee, and this is something you're going to see a lot with Ann Lee, is, like at one point there was a chance that maybe that film could get a few tech nominations along with the Best Picture nomination. I don't think it's happening now. Oh boy. Then we get to costume design. Again, top three is very easy. Frankenstein, Sinners, Hamnet. Easy. Very easy. Frankenstein's easily winning this. Probably even more so than production design. Because, again, like, the costumes are just so lavish, so big, so vibrant. It's like, it's going to be like Wicked. And speaking of Wicked, I do have it in for costume design here. And from what I was told, again, from the previous collab that I did with Adriano, he did say that the differences in the costume design were much more apparent than even the production design. So, alright, safe there. And I'm just going to predict one battle after another. I know it's weird, but it's like, wait, one battle after another? Are you serious? Look. If this film is really looking to be like that really big Best Picture contender, like, why not add in costume design? I mean, the costumes, they're very contemporary, but they're also very recognizable as one battle after another. Like, you instantly recognize who these characters are. And I feel like that's a key thing that the costume designers really like. They like it when you make the costumes very recognizable. I mean, even with Oppenheimer. Like, Oppenheimer was just a bunch of dudes in suits. That really shouldn't have been a thing. But you add in, what Oppenheimer's outfit with the hat and everything. It's, like, easily recognizable. You know what this is representing. And here, I feel like they're kind of doing the same thing with one battle after another. Now, again, another one you could potentially look at is The Secret Agent. Some people have been floating this around for costume design. So maybe, we'll have to see, but maybe Marty Supreme, that's another option that could happen. Maybe. But then after that, I feel like, I don't know. Hedda, I don't think it's going to happen. Kiss of the Spider-Woman, that didn't get nominated at the Costume Guild, and that has been around. And unlike films like, A Complete Unknown, people have seen Kiss of the Spider-Woman at this point. I don't think it's happening. And then Ann Lee, again, missing the Costume Guild. I mean, again, one could argue it's maybe because of its, December release. Maybe they didn't see it yet. But the fact that the Academy outright rejected it in every category, it's over for this film. They hate Ann Lee. Makeup and hairstyling. The top three, I think, is very, very locked in. Frankenstein at number 1, Wicked for Good at number 2, and The Smashing Machine at number 3. Yes, I know people don't really care about The Smashing Machine that much, but again, makeup is the one category where and to be fair, this isn't even like a no one cares movie. It's like people know about this film, but even if no one knew about this film, like, it would still get nominated because this is the one category where you can be a nothing burger film and still get nominated for makeup. This happened with Golda. I remember when Golda, like, when I first saw that image of Helen Mirren in the movie Golda, I was like, makeup nomination, easy. It's gonna happen. And people were like, come on, Christian, no one's seen that movie. It's like, the makeup branch is gonna see it. And sure enough, it got nominated. Sinners, not only is there, like, big monster makeup at the end, but during the I Lied to You sequence, apparently there is a lot of, like, makeup and hairstyling that goes throughout the decades and stuff. It's a little bit hard to notice because of the way it's shot and the way, the camera kind of swivels around and you don't get a good look at everyone. But I think, honestly, there might be enough in there. And then one battle after another. If you've seen the film, they do a thing with the character at the end. It's enough. I think it's enough. If the film is as big of a contender as it is, then yeah. I mean, if Oppenheimer could get in, then why not one battle after another? I mean, and I know people are like, well, in Oppenheimer, they made the characters look old. Well, for one, I don't even think the makeup was all that great. I mean, the gray hairs look painted on at times. Like, I was like, what? But it's also like that was a case where the film was just so strong in so many categories to where they were just going to nominate it everywhere. And so it's like the same thing could be, they're literally doing more prosthetic stuff in one battle after another than in Oppenheimer. I think it's just going to get in. The Alto Knights, I remember like when I first realized this film was a thing, I was like, and I looked up, the whole twin effect they were doing with Robert De Niro. But not only that, like the fact that they did makeup on him, I'm like, oh, that's just going to get shortlisted. Yeah. And people were like, come on, Christian. No one knows about the Alto Knights. They're not going to shortlist this. Look at it. Again, I called it. I freaking called it. I kept this in my radar and I had this in my 10 ever since I realized like what this film actually was doing. I was like, it's going to get short. It might be not okay if it gets nominated for the Makeup Guild. Now we're talking. Now we're really talking about this. Because granted, like Nosferatu didn't get nominated at the Makeup Guild, but I think that was fine because that movie was just coming out, and I think the Makeup Guild was like one of the first, industry guilds we had at the time that year. So it's like they probably just didn't see it yet. But then there's films like Dune Part 2 where that missed every category. It did not get, like, Dune Part 2 did not get nominated for a single award over at the Makeup Guild. And that had been around, like that had been out since March. They had seen that movie up to that point. They just didn't nominate it. The Alto Knights is going to be interesting. Because if it does get nominated there at the Makeup Guild, I'm taking it seriously. I'm going to take it seriously. So yeah, The Ugly Stepsister. I remember this is one that I actually had nominated for makeup, like, early in my, Oscar predictions. And here it is. It's actually shortlisted. Go figure. Again, I'm not exactly sure what prosthetics are in the film. That could help me. I was wondering what Kokuho was doing in the category for makeup. But apparently, like, they're like, I literally had a tab open initially for what this film was doing, but apparently there's like a specifically, like a Japanese theater, like type, like art, like a Japanese theater style that they're doing. And apparently a lot of it involves like very, precise, makeup, not necessarily prosthetics, but like, more painterly makeup. And from the trailers, it looks very well done. I don't think it's going to get nominated because, again, the makeup branch does prefer the prosthetics, but, that is an interesting pick. Marty Supreme, classic, gets in the shortlist because of some, a little bit of period character makeup, but I just don't think makes the Oscar nomination lineup. Like, this is Killers of the Flower Moon. This is West Side Story. This is just kind of one of those things where they're just doing a little bit of makeup, but it doesn't really go anywhere. And then Nuremberg, I'm not even really sure how much makeup they did on Russell Crowe. I'm not even really sure about that. So yeah. Visual effects. This is interesting. Avatar Fire and Ash is probably the only nomination I'm very secure in. That's the only one I'm very secure in. Superman did make the shortlist, and that's very good for it. And it did get the Critics' Choice nomination, and like getting the shortlist was very good for it because like the visual effects branch hasn't been that great towards DC. I mean, yeah, they did nominate the Batman, but aside from that, and Birds of Prey, which got shortlisted, but again, you kind of have to take Birds of Prey with a very heavy grain of salt because that film came out during a pandemic year. All the competition for visual effects was gone, so does it really count at the end of the day? I don't know. But before that, you have to go all the way back to like The Dark Knight Rises, before the DCEU even started, to see when the last time a DC film was shortlisted for visual effects. Like Man of Steel didn't get shortlisted. James Gunn's The Suicide Squad didn't get shortlisted. Those are films that had very strong visual effects and they did not get shortlisted. Superman did. Now, granted, this is not DCEU, this is DCU. I've always been kind of worried about that. Like, could Superman get in? But it did get shortlisted, and not only here, but also sound. That's pretty strong for the film. The fact that it actually did get those 2 shortlists. So I am looking out for that. I think this is, again, it's probably the second most likely nomination here. Everything else, I'm just kind of wondering what's going on. Wicked for Good, it didn't get Critics' Choice despite getting Best Picture, which is strange, but I don't really want to doubt this film in visual effects. I really don't, because people try to say, well, the first film got nominated because it was in Best Picture. That does not help you in this category. I mean, at least normally it doesn't help you in that category at all. Because, like, they will snub you in the shortlists. Or even in the Oscars. Like, they will snub you out of Best Visual Effects in general. Regardless if you're in Best Picture or not. You know, let's look at previous years. The Substance, that didn't get in for visual. Hell, that didn't even get shortlisted for visual effects. Not in the top 10 at least. You know, Poor Things didn't get nominated for visual effects. Oppenheimer didn't make the top 20 for visual effects. Arrival didn't get nominated for visual effects. Everything Ever All at Once did not get shortlisted for visual effects. Black Panther did not get nominated for visual effects. I'm trying to look at what other films were like Mank, that even in a weak year that didn't get nominated for visual effects. So it's just like Dunkirk, Shape of Water, they didn't get nominated for visual effects. They genuinely do not care if you're in Best Picture. They will snub you. They will snub you in that category. Which, granted, is a little bit of a surprise seeing Sinners here, but we'll talk about that here in a bit. Wicked for Good. Basically, Wicked did not get in for visual effects because it was in Best Picture and it was a big tech juggernaut. It got in because it was a big visual effects spectacle and it had a lot of different kinds of visual effects. It was probably number 5 in the category to win. Okay, maybe not to win. I mean, in terms of the win, it was probably number 2 because, you know, everybody votes for best visual effects when picking the winners, not just the visual effects branch. But when the visual effects branch were making up their nominees, you know, Wicked was probably number 5. Sure. But at the same time, that was also a very strong year for visual effects, I would argue, and it still got nominated. Wicked for Good, it's coming out in a year that's significantly weaker in visual effects. And not only that, it is coming out in a weak year for visual effects where they didn't even shortlist Fantastic Four or Mission Impossible. So it's like, that's weird. So yeah, I don't know. And I'm trying, they also didn't shortlist Mickey 17 here either. But they kept in Wicked. So I think Wicked is still going to get in. I mean, so yeah. F1 is interesting. I really want to see what the Visual Effects Society does, and you're going to hear me say this a lot in this category. I really want to see what the Visual Effects Society does, because we still don't have a visual effects breakdown for F1. We just don't. So I'm not sure what to do about this. And I know that, because I'm pretty sure there are scenes where like they replace the cars with CGI, but I need to know like how crazy it actually was. I'm curious about that. And then there's The Lost Bus, which I know people are going to be saying, well, that's just 13 lives. It's going to it made the shortlist, but it's not going to get nominated. Okay, here's the thing. Here's the difference between that and The Lost Bus, I would argue. All right? 13 lives. It was very impressive work, but the effects were mostly static. You know what I mean? Like, it wasn't really, the effects weren't really moving around a lot. It was practically flawless visual effects, sure, but a lot of it was very still. There wasn't really a lot of crazy stuff going on with the visual effects. The Lost Bus is a little bit more comparable to something like Deepwater Horizon. Not as crazy as Deepwater. Deepwater Horizon was insane with its visual effects. This isn't quite insane levels of visual effects, but it still is a lot, and they're doing a lot with the effects. You know, with all these fires, with all these big plumes of smoke, like, it's doing way more with its visual effects than something like 13 Lives, or, you know, trying to think of like what other films I'm kind of thinking that were like shortlisted but didn't get nominated. Like it's definitely doing more visual effects stuff than Dunkirk did. So it's kind of like, yeah, I don't know. I feel like, well, because it's obvious, like, The Lost Boss is easily going to get nominated for the Visual Effects Society Award for supporting visual effects. That's just going to happen. It's probably going to get nominated for, like, effects simulations and maybe compositing. I'm not exactly sure. Maybe they do it for compositing, but definitely the effects simulations part. Because just look up the visual effects breakdowns for The Lost Boss. It's really impressive work what they did in that film. And it is a lot of work. And that's the thing. You want to see, like, there is the quality of the work and there's also the amount of work. The visual effects branch does respond to both. At the same time, there is also Frankenstein and Sinners. I have Frankenstein at number 6 and Sinners at number 8. Sinners making this shocked me. I was like, really? They did Sinners for visual effects. And at this point, I know I'm seeing a lot of people predicting Sinners for visual effects. But here's the thing. Even when doing the research for the visual effects, I'm not convinced it's getting in. I'm just not convinced of it. I would need to see a very strong showing of the Visual Effects Society Awards. And not just, supporting visual effects. It's going to get that nomination easily. Especially if it's nominated, especially if it's in the shortlist. It's in the shortlist. And so it's going to get into the supporting visual effects category at VES easy. All right, fine. How many other nominations does it get? Like, if this, for example, if this got like 4 nominations, okay, then you got to seriously predict it for visual effects. Because at least in the 2020s, no film has gotten 4 nominations or more at VES and got snubbed for the Oscar. It just does not happen these days. That would show that it's very strong and they are doing a lot. Probably more than we thought. And I know people are saying, well, they did the twin effects in Sinners. And it's like, but looking at what they're doing, it doesn't seem like it's that crazy. I mean, yeah, they had the whole rig, but from what I understand, it's only for like the fight scene that they're using it, and it's the shots aren't very long. And I know that's weird, like, why does the shot length matter? Because it makes it a lot harder to do when the shots are longer, and that's what impresses the visual effects branch the most. That, like, for example, it's probably why, Twisters didn't get nominated for the Oscar, but Alien Romulus did. Because with with Twisters, the visual effects were very strong, but it was also very quickly edited, so it's like, there wasn't enough time to really bask in the visual effects of that film. Whereas with Alien Romulus, when the ship is just like crashing down into the asteroid belt, and it's like, psh, like, that shot goes on for a long time, and that is a rendering nightmare. So I feel like that helped it get the nomination. But with Sinners, like, the most complicated visual effects stuff that they're doing is stuff that's not really, they're not really doing a lot, or at least they're not really, the shots themselves are not very long, and it's just not the craziest twin effect we've ever seen. And even aside from that, the other twin effects they're doing, like the split screen stuff, that's in every like twin movie. That's in every movie where they have twins. They've been doing that for a long time. And it really just comes down to really, really clever timing. Which again, like, other movies have done that. Hell, I would argue Mickey 17 had way more impressive and way more crazy twin effects than Sinners. I just really don't buy Sinners getting into visual effects. I just don't. Again, unless there's something I'm missing, and this film gets like 4 nominations at VES, then, like, if it does that, then okay, wow. But for example, if it were to just, get like, but like, how do I describe it? It's like getting supporting visual effects alone at VES is not going to convince me enough. I need to see how many nominations it gets. How strong is Sinners in visual effects actually? Like, I'm not saying, like, whatever movies get the most nominations, those are automatically the ones that get nominated. No, I'm not necessarily saying that. But for something like Sinners, I'm going to need some real proof. I'm going to need some real proof to see, like, how this is going to work out. So I don't know. And then Frankenstein, it's a little bit more, like, I could probably buy that more, which is why I have it at number 6, because the visual effects are way bigger and way more apparent that they are visual effects. And it's not that they're bad or anything, but it's also just like, yeah. But at the same time, Guillermo del Toro has not really had a film nominated for visual effects before. Even The Shape of Water couldn't do it. Now, granted, this is slightly more visual effects heavy than Frankenstein. And again, probably like Sinners, it's going to get technically nominated in every precursor, Critics' Choice, BAFTA, and supporting visual effects, the Visual Effects Society. But again, I don't really care about that because BAFTA and Critics' Choice, they will glaze Best Picture nominees in visual effects, and VES supporting, that's a very wide open field. There's not much competition there anyway. Now, if Frankenstein got nominated for the main category, like the outstanding visual effects film, outstanding visual effects in a visual effects driven film, or what's now called outstanding visual effects in a photoreal feature, and that's the main category. All right, then we're cooking. Then we're getting something interesting there. But it's probably going to get into supporting visual effects, which is not going to convince me enough because, again, that category is not competitive at all, really. So I'm not really, like, I don't know. So, again, just like Sinners, it would depend on how many nominations it actually got. Once you cross 4, you're kind of locked in, at least these days. So it's like, yeah. Right now, I'm not convinced. Tron Ares. What's interesting about Tron Ares is that, like, the first Tron was very groundbreaking with its visual effects, but it didn't get nominated. Contrary to what, again, I'm going to repeat the story because I feel like it needs repeating. People claim that, hey, it didn't, get shortlisted for, it didn't get not shortlisted. It didn't get nominated for visual effects because it was disqualified. It was not technically disqualified. What happened was that there was no real visual effects branch back then. It was mostly just like a general group of, technicians in the film industry. And they did not want to nominate Tron, the original Tron, because they were worried that film was going to take their jobs, and they thought the usage of computers was cheating. But they did not disqualify it. They did not remove it from the shortlist, because you can do that. Look at Forbidden Road from Better Man. Like, that got disqualified from the original song shortlist last year. They did not disqualify Tron. They just didn't vote for it. So again, I do want to just point that out. And then there's Tron Legacy, which did get shortlisted, which also got shortlisted for visual effects, but it didn't get nominated. And then there's Tron Ares, and having seen Tron Ares, I feel like this has a much harder case to make for visual effects because we're kind of stuck in the real world for most of the film. You don't really see a lot of the Tron world. And I feel like that's probably going to bite this film in the ass. Now, could this get VES? Sure, it could do that. But again, I'm not really that convinced. Like, especially nowadays, like, just because you get into the main VES category, doesn't mean you're locked in for the Oscar for visual effects. At least not as much as it used to mean back then, during the, in like the 2010s. Like, getting into the outstanding visual effects in a photoreal feature category, that was like really big. Like there were quite a few times actually where if you got that, if you like, where they went 5 out of 5 with what the main category was at VES, but nowadays it's not that simple. So I don't know. But yeah, Tron Ares, I'm not that convinced because it's mostly set in the real world. They don't go to the Tron world that much. And I feel like if they really wanted to exploit the visual effects in that film, they would probably want to do that. So, I don't know. The Electric State. I've seen some visual effects breakdowns. I don't think the visual effects are that bad. I think they're actually very good. I don't think it gets nominated. But I will say, if they do nominate the Electric State, I will respect that. Because you can't say they did it because they liked the movie. You cannot say that they nominated the Electric State because they liked the movie. They only were just very impressed with the visual effects. I don't think it's happening. I was a little bit surprised that it made the shortlist because I didn't think, I just thought they were not going to touch the movie, but you know what? I respect it. And then Jurassic World Rebirth. This is one where, like, yeah, classic film that, you know, gets in the shortlist but doesn't get nominated. I mean, the last time a Jurassic Park film was nominated for visual effects was The Lost World in 1997. So I'm just like, not gonna happen. So yeah. Sound. Again, another shortlisted category. Yeah, one battle. I'm going to go with One Battle After Another winning sound because, again, it is a Best Picture winning action film, so I want to play it safe. But Sinners, that would be a really tasteful sound winner because, again, that also has like action sound effects, but also music, and they do like those. So I am kind of looking out for that. F1, I really don't think it's going to win sound. I know people are saying, oh, it could maybe win sound. It's not going to win sound, guys. It's just not, because ever since they expanded the Best Picture category, the only film that ever won a sound Oscar, ever since they expanded Best Picture, the only film that ever won a sound Oscar without being nominated for Best Picture was Skyfall in sound editing. And even then, it tied with Best Picture nominee Zero Dark 30. So even then, it's kind of like, I don't know, I'm not really going to consider F1 for the win. I'm just not. Avatar Fire and Ash, it could maybe get nominated here. And then that last slot, you could do a few things. You could do Frankenstein, which I have at number 6. Because there is a lot of sound in the movie. I'm not sure if it's going to be considered the best sound. So they could maybe have some problems with the mixing. Like that's a little bit too clear. So I'm not sure. They could do Mission Impossible: The Final Reckoning, but I think the fact that it didn't even get in for visual effects, it's probably looking pretty weak here. I'm actually going to go with Surat, because they might be really impressed with the sound mixing in the film. So I might actually go with that. And the fact that it made 5 shortlists, I think if it were going to appear otherwise, aside from international feature, at least 4 tech shortlists, if it were going to appear in one of them, I would probably say Surat would get into sound. So, yeah. Wicked for Good, if it were in Best Picture, I'd probably do it, but right now, no. Superman, love that it made the shortlist. I don't think it's happening. If it did get nominated for sound, hey, that'd be yummy, but I don't think so. And then Springsteen, Deliver Me From Nowhere. Pretty interesting pick for sound. I don't think it's happening. It's not in Best Picture at all. And the reason why I'm mentioning Best Picture is because being in Best Picture doesn't mean you're automatically in for sound. And if you're not in Best Picture, you're automatically out. But because people really just do not like Springsteen, I don't know. I just don't know about this one. So, yeah. Score. Okay, oopsies. Alright, fixed it. Anyways, original score. Let's take a look at this, shall we? Alright, Sinners, thankfully, is winning a lot of the regional critics groups. I was worried that One Battle After Another was going to take score. I was initially worried about that. Because again, One Battle After Another is so strong in Best Picture, and there is the narrative of Johnny Greenwood, and but Johnny Greenwood hasn't won an Oscar yet. Shut up. Like, Ludwig Göransson made a better score. It's not, it's not, the category isn't called, oh, who can we give an Oscar to next? Like, someone who's never had an Oscar, boo-hoo. No, it's best score. Best original score. Ludwig Göransson made the best score. So, yeah, go away, Johnny Greenwood. You can win an Oscar when you deserve it. Sinners, the score in Sinners is literally the DNA of the film. So much of the DNA that Ludwig Göransson is an executive producer on the film. That is how powerful the music is in the movie. The movie is the music. And the fact that it's just taking score wherever it goes, I'm happy. I'm happy about this. This is exactly the kind of score that should be winning the Oscar. Very big, very it's so big to where, again, it becomes a character in the film. I love that. One Battle After Another. If there was an upset, it could easily be this, but so yeah. Hamnet, I think it's going to be safe. Like, I think, honestly, Hamnet is probably going to be safe in a lot of these categories where it's like, it's not going to overperform anywhere, but it's also not going to underperform anywhere, so there's that. Frankenstein, I have in At number 4, because I feel like it's just going to be a big film overall. And I actually have Begonia in score. Now, why do I have Begonia in score? Well, one thing I looked at was the Society of Composers and Lyricists Awards. And that award show is interesting because they either go like 5 out of 5 with what the Oscars do. They've been doing this for like 6 years. They either go 5 out of 5 with what the Oscars do, or they're very off base. And what I mean by very off base is that like they will, like, the other times, like, one year they went 3 out of 5, another year they went 2 out of 5, and another year they went 1 out of 5. But in those years, the main competitors were not nominated. The main competitors were not nominated at, you know, they were not nominated at the Society of Composers and Lyricists Awards. And the top 4 did make it in this year. Sinners, One Battle After Another, Hamnet, Frankenstein. Major contenders. So, alright, cool. And then, a few things I noticed. Marty Supreme, not in here. But what did get in? Begonia did get in for score. That's interesting. Train Dreams also got in. Also, I think, if I'm not mistaken, F1 also did not make it in. And this was fascinating to me. Because again, when they do have the main contenders, they are very accurate with the Oscars. Very accurate with the Oscars for best, original score. And I have a feeling Begonia may actually get in for score. I actually do think it might happen. Because the score definitely did, stand out to me. To me, at least. And granted, Train Dreams could do it too. If the Oscars do want to really go hard for Train Dreams, and they want to give it score as well, they could very well do that. But I'm not gonna lie, I think Marty Supreme might be out. Surratt, it got in at the Globes, but I don't think it's happening at the Oscars. And then, obviously, there's a long list of other films like Diane Warren, Relentless, Jay Kelly, Wicked for Good, Avatar, Fire and Ash, Nuremberg, House of Dynamite, Tron, Ares, Hedda, Wake Up Dead Man, Truth and Treason, Captain America. Yes, Captain America Brave New World is going to get nominated for score. I still can't believe that got in over Fantastic Four. What? So, yeah, anyways. Yeah. And then we get to the final category. The final category here tonight, original song. I am still convinced I Lied to You is taking it. Because, that is connected to the scene of the year. With that whole trippy sequence in the juke joint. The fact that song is so tied in, it's I genuinely have a hard time imagining the Academy just glossing over that. I feel like that connection to the scene is going to be very important. Because yes, Golden, it is nominated for Best Song of the Year at the Grammys. But, however, this is not the music branch voting for the winners, or at least it's not only the music branch voting for the winners. It is everyone in the Academy. And I feel like they're going to go with the film that they feel most, best represented the film itself. I know it's kind of weird, but you know what I mean. And I feel like they're going to really associate I Lied to You with the message of Sinners. I think they're going to do that. Dear Me from Diane Warren, Relentless. She's going to get nominated. She's not going to win. So, yeah. Last time I'd seen The Sun, it didn't get in at Critics' Choice or the Golden Globes. But again, we're seeing a very strong showing for Sinners everywhere. And the fact that it's in the shortlist, I really do think it's probably going to get nominated. Train Dreams from Train Dreams, probably going to happen. And then Golden from K-Pop Demon Hunters. I am a little bit worried about this being snubbed because they do snub the animated films in song a lot. They did this with, the Wild Robot song, Spider-Verse, and Pinocchio. But this film could end up being a little bit stronger than those in those regards. In some way, shape, or form. So yeah, we'll have to see about that. But again, it did get Song of the Year at the Grammys, so that could very well help it. So yeah. But then there's Salt Then Sour Then Sweet from Come See Me in the Good Light. I will say it was not a good song. I've listened to all these songs. This is a very, very mid shortlist. So many of there's so much that could be replaced here. It's so dumb. but I've heard some very good things about, like, people are like, the songwriter here is like very, very well acclaimed, so we'll have to see. And then yes, there is Girl in the Bubble and No Place Like Home. Everyone I talk to says that the new songs are the worst part of the movie. It's like, why they make new songs? They don't fit in the story. I really, really don't think these are getting nominated. I really, really don't. Again, this is the Oscars are also the place where they will just completely like stamp out these kind of films, the films that are just really like, they will snub out the some of the more big populist picks, and if it's not golden, they're like it's probably going to be it's probably going to be like the Wicked movies, like Wicked for Good, the Wicked for Good songs. So yeah. So I do think I think they could honestly be in trouble. Even Girl in the Bubble. Then there's Dream is One from Avatar: Fire and Ash. Out of this shortlist, I would like Dream is One to be nominated, but I know that's not going to happen. Drive from F1, I don't think that's happening. Dying to Live from Billy Idol should be dead. I don't know. That is sort of like a documentary, but I don't think so. Sweet Dreams of Joy from Viva Verdi, probably not. Our Love from the Ballad of Wallace Island, God, I hope that song doesn't get in. As Alive as You Need Me to Be, I don't really think so. And then Highest to Lowest from Highest to Lowest, again, I don't think that's happening. But yeah, guys, those are my predictions for the below the line categories at the Oscars and for December. And like I said, this is my final Oscar predictions video until my final Oscar nominations predictions video, which that's going to be a lot of fun. And again, we have the Critics' Choice Awards coming up. We have the Golden Globes coming up. And we got way more guilds coming up. I'm doing a lot more collabs, so stick around for those. And so, yeah, guys, now I'm going to pass the question off to you. What are your below-the-line Oscar predictions for December? Let me know in the comments below what you think, and be sure you hit that subscribe button, because if you don't, you're never going to see the new year.